My son-in-law, Jordan Scott, had two security guards walk me out of his own promotion party in front of 40 people, called me an embarrassment to my face while my granddaughter watched. He had no idea the company that just made him regional VP belonged to me. Stick around for this one. Drop the city you're watching from in the comments. I like seeing how far these stories travel. I'm Albert Stanley, 71, built Falconer Freight out of one used truck and about 20 years of bad sleep. My daughter, Isabella Sharp, married Jordan 6 years ago. Sharp dresser, always talking about optics. Never once asked me a real question about what I did for a living. I let it go. Wasn't my job to impress him. The party was at the Ashford Club, downtown Charlotte. White tablecloths, a jazz trio, the whole production. Jordan had just been named regional VP at Falconer, and Isabella wanted me there. I wore my good flannel and my cleanest boots. Should have known that was a mistake the second the valet looked at my truck like it owed him money. Jordan met me at the door. Instead of a hug, looked me up and down. "Albert, didn't think you'd make it out for something like this." Like I was doing him a favor by breathing the same air as his law firm friends and country club people. Isabella squeezed my arm. "Dad, I'm so glad you came." She looked tired. She always looked tired around Jordan's crowd. My granddaughter Phoebe found me before I even got a drink. 6 years old, ran straight into my legs. "Grandpa, I saved you a seat by me." First real smile I'd had all week. Jordan didn't like that. "Phoebe, go find your seat at the kids' table. Grandpa's gonna sit with the other guests." Other guests. Like I was a stranger they'd let in out of pity. Dinner started fine enough. Then somewhere around the second course, one of Jordan's partners asked me what I did. Before I could answer, Jordan cut in, laughing. "Albert here spent 30 years driving trucks. Now he does a little something with an old fleet outfit. Real blue-collar guy, salt of the earth." Said it like a joke, and the table laughed like it was one. I owned that fleet outfit. 41 distribution centers, 11 states. Didn't correct him. Wasn't the place. Isabella's face went red. "Jordan, he's what? I'm complimenting him." He wasn't. Everybody at that table knew he wasn't. It got worse over dessert. Phoebe climbed into my lap, chocolate on her fingers, asking me to tell her the story about the old dog in the storm, the one I made up the day she was born. Jordan stood up so fast his chair scraped the floor. "Phoebe, down, now!" Pulled her off my lap harder than he needed to. She started crying. "She's fine, Jordan. She just wanted a story." "She's fine because I said get down." He turned to me, and his voice dropped just enough for the whole table to hear it clean. "I invited you tonight because Isabella asked me to. I didn't invite you to sit here in work boots and make my partners think I come from nothing. You've embarrassed me enough for one night." The table went quiet. Real quiet. "I'm going to ask you to leave," Jordan said. "I'll have someone walk you to your truck." I laughed, thinking he was joking. He wasn't. 2 guys in club blazers were already coming to our table, like he'd texted them ahead of time, which I found out later he had. Isabella stood up. "Jordan, that's my father." "Your father can leave with some dignity, or I can have these men do it for him." Flat, like he was talking about moving furniture. I stood up on my own before they reached me. Wasn't going to give him the satisfaction of being dragged. Phoebe was crying harder now, reaching for me over Isabella's shoulder. I didn't look back at Jordan. I looked at my daughter, and she wouldn't meet my eyes. Outside, the valet still had that look on his face. I sat in my truck a good 10 minutes before my hands stopped shaking enough to drive. Here's what Jordan didn't know walking back into that party feeling like a big man. Monday morning, I had a 9 a.m. with the head of HR at Falconer Freight. Not because I run into HR problems often, because I own the building HR sits in, and I just decided I had some reading to do on Regional VP Jordan Scott. He wanted to know what I actually did for a living. Come Monday, he was going to find out. I got to Falconer Freight headquarters at 6 that Monday morning, 2 hours before I usually show up. Wanted the building empty. Wanted to think before the phone started ringing. 38 years I've owned this company. Started with 1 truck and a loan I almost couldn't pay back. Now it's a 9-story building on Tryon Street with my name nowhere on the door because I'd never liked seeing it. Jordan Scott worked on the 6th floor, Regional VP, Logistics Division. 6 months in the job, and until Friday night, I'd never bothered to look up his file. Wasn't my habit to go digging into my daughter's husband's work life. That changed real quick.
My assistant, Faith Lane, has been with me 22 years. Started as a dispatcher when she was 24. She knew something was wrong the second I called her at 5:40 in the morning. Mr. Stanley, you never call before 7. Need you to pull personnel files for me, Faith. Quiet as you can. Start with logistics, 6th floor. Anybody under Jordan Scott. Long pause on her end. Is this about your daughter's husband? It's about a VP at my company. That's all it needs to be right now. By 8, Faith had a stack on my desk thick enough to need 2 hands. I started reading, and about 20 minutes in, my coffee went cold and I didn't notice. 3 formal complaints against Jordan in the past year, all from employees over 50. First one from Gilberto Huff, a dispatch supervisor, 62 years old, 26 years with the company. Jordan had told him in a team meeting that the department needs people who can still keep up, not just people who've been coasting since the Bush administration. Gilberto filed a complaint, got dismissed because Jordan's direct supervisor signed off saying he was pushing for performance standards. Second complaint, Freddie Gibson, 59, wrote that Jordan made him retrain under a 26-year-old just brought on in front of the whole shift and told him it was so you don't get left behind. Dismissed the same way. Third one hit different. Caitlin Thomas, night shift logistics coordinator, 55 years old. She'd filed a complaint after Jordan mocked her for not knowing a new software rollout fast enough. Said something in an email that got forwarded around the office. Some people just aren't built for where this industry's headed. We might be carrying dead weight. She got moved to a smaller regional office 2 states away, called it a lateral transfer for operational needs. She'd been passed over for 2 promotions since. I sat there with that email printed out in my hand, and I thought about Phoebe crying at that table, about Jordan yanking me off my lap because I embarrassed him in front of people. This wasn't one bad night. This was a pattern. He built a habit out of stepping on people he thought were beneath him, and until Friday night, I was one more name on that list without knowing it. My phone rang around 9. Isabella. Dad, I'm so sorry about Friday. Jordan's been under a lot of pressure with the new role. He didn't mean... He called security on me, Isabella, in front of my granddaughter. Quiet on her end. I know. I told him that was too far. What'd he say back? That you made things difficult by not dressing appropriately. That he was protecting the image of the night. Her voice cracked a little. I should have said something at the table. I froze. I didn't say what I was thinking, which was that she'd been freezing for 6 years. I need some time before I talk to him again, I said instead. That's all I know right now. Of course. Dad, are you okay? You sound different. I sounded different because I was different. Different than the man who sat quiet through his own humiliation on Friday night. I called Faith back in. I want a meeting with Jordan Scott, my office, tomorrow, 10 a.m. Should I tell him what it's about? Tell him it's a leadership review. That's true enough. After she left, I stood at the window looking down at the parking lot, watching people file in for the day shift, none of them knowing that 3 floors up, somebody was finally reading the file that should have landed on my desk a year ago. Somewhere in this building, Caitlin Thomas was working a smaller job than she deserved because a 34-year-old with a nice suit decided she was dead weight. Jordan thought he humiliated a broke old man in work boots on Friday night. Tomorrow morning, that same old man was going to be sitting behind a desk on the top floor, waiting for him, with his own personnel file open on the screen. I picked up the last folder in the stack. His. Employee of the Year, 2 years running. Handsome photo, confident smile. I read it twice before I noticed my hands weren't shaking anymore. They were steady, in a way they hadn't been since I drove home Friday night. Tomorrow, Jordan Scott was going to walk into a meeting expecting a performance review from a man he thought drove trucks for a living.
10 o'clock sharp. I heard him before I saw him. That confident stride down the marble hallway outside my office. The kind of walk a man has when he's never once worried about being let go. I kept my back to the door, chair turned toward the window, watching the city wake up 9 floors below. My assistant's voice came over the intercom.
Mr. Stanley, Jordan Scott is here for his 10 o'clock. Send him in, Faith. The door opened. Morning. Faith said this was some kind of leadership review, but nobody told me the regional owner does these personally, so I'm guessing this is... His voice stopped cold. I turned my chair around. I watched it happen on his face in real time. Recognition, confusion, and something that looked like the floor dropping out from under him. Albert, he said, my name like it was a foreign word. Why are you sitting at... Have a seat, Jordan. He didn't sit. This is Isabella's father. What is he doing in my... This is my office, Jordan. Has been for 38 years. Sit down. We've got a lot to talk about. He lowered himself into the chair across from my desk like his legs had stopped taking instructions from his brain. You own Falconer Freight? Founded it. Own every piece of it. But at the party, you said you did trucking, some old fleet thing. I never said that. You said that, in front of your whole table, and I let you keep talking because it wasn't the place. I leaned back. Funny thing about assuming what a man's worth by his boots. He tried to find his footing, the way men like him always do. Chin up, voice smoothing out. Look, Albert, Mr. Stanley, whatever happened Friday, that was a family matter, and I don't think it's appropriate to bring that into... I'm not here about Friday. I'm here about Gilberto Huff. His face changed again. Who? Dispatch supervisor, 62, 26 years with this company. You told him in a team meeting he needed to keep up, not coast since the Bush administration. I slid the printed complaint across the desk. Ring a bell now? He didn't touch it. That was about performance standards. I was direct. That's leadership. What about Freddie Gibson? Made him retrain under a 26-year-old in front of the whole shift. Freddie needed retraining. Everyone did after the software update. And Caitlin Thomas. Some people aren't built for where this industry's headed. We might be carrying dead weight. Your words in an email that got forwarded around your entire floor before somebody finally had the sense to print it and file it. Jordan's jaw tightened. That email was taken out of context. I've read the whole thread, Jordan. There's no context that fixes it. I stood, walked to the window. 3 formal complaints in 1 year, all dismissed because your supervisor thought you were maintaining standards, all from people over 50. That's not a coincidence. That's a pattern. This is retaliation. His voice cracked louder now, the composure finally slipping. This is about Friday night. You're using my job to get back at me because I asked you to leave a party. I turned back to face him. You had 2 grown men walk me out of a restaurant in front of my granddaughter because my boots didn't match your tablecloths. That's not why we're having this conversation, Jordan, but it sure as hell told me who you are when you thought nobody with any real power was watching. He stood up so fast the chair nearly tipped. So what, you're firing me? Is that what this is? I looked at him a long moment, thought about Caitlin, 2 states away in a smaller office, passed over twice. Thought about Gilberto, 26 years of loyalty repaid with a joke about his age in front of the whole department. No, I said, I'm not firing you yet. Relief flickered across his face for half a second. Monday morning, you're going to report to our regional distribution warehouse on Statesville Road, loading dock, same shift as Gilberto Huff and Freddie Gibson, the 2 men you decided were dead weight. His mouth fell open. You want me loading trucks? I'm a regional VP. Not this week, you're not. Consider it a leadership refresher. You'll be working under people you spent a year humiliating. See how that education suits you. You can't do this. I built this company, Jordan. I can do whatever I decide is right for it. I sat back down at my desk. You have a choice. Report Monday or clean out your office today. Either way, we're done talking about it right now. He stood there, chest rising and falling, some calculation working behind his eyes that I didn't like the look of. Isabella's gonna hear about this, he said finally. She's gonna know exactly what kind of man her father really is. Isabella's gonna hear the truth, whatever that turns out to be. He walked out without another word, and through my window a few minutes later, I watched him standing in the parking lot, phone pressed to his ear, pacing in tight circles like he could argue his way out of what was coming. I picked up my own phone and called Faith. I need you to let the regional distribution warehouse foreman know he's getting a new man on the loading dock Monday.
And Faith, make sure Gilberto Huff is on that same shift. She paused. You sure about this, Mr. Stanley? I looked out at Jordan, still pacing below, still talking fast with his free hand cutting through the air like he could argue his way out of what was coming. I've never been more sure of anything. The Statesville warehouse ran cold in the mornings, even in October. Big metal doors rolled up at 5 a.m., forklifts already moving, the smell of diesel and cardboard thick enough to taste. I drove out there myself that first Monday, parked in the back where nobody would clock my truck, and watched from the mezzanine office through a window with the blinds half shut. Jordan showed up 11 minutes late, wearing jeans that still had the fold lines from the store and boots that had clearly never touched gravel before that morning. Gilberto Huff was already on the dock, clipboard in hand, 62 years old and moving faster than half the 20-year-olds round him. You're late, Gilberto said, not looking up. There's traffic on 77. Jordan's voice had lost some of its polish already. There's traffic every day. Man who's on time accounts for it. Gilberto handed him a pair of gloves. You're on pallet breakdown with Freddie. He'll show you where things go. Freddie Gibson looked Jordan up and down the way you'd size up a load you weren't sure would hold. Regional VP doing pallet breakdown. Company's really changing. He didn't smile when he said it. By 9 a.m., Jordan had dropped a case of glassware trying to lift it the way you're not supposed to, bent at the back instead of the knees. Freddie didn't help him pick it up right away. Let him sit there a second, feeling it, before he crouched down. That's why we train people, Freddie said. You skip it, your back finds out the hard way. I wasn't trained on this. No, Freddie agreed, you weren't. He didn't say anything else, but he didn't need to. I watched most of the morning from that office, more than I probably should have. Around noon, Jordan sat on an overturned crate for break, eating a sandwich by himself, while Gilberto and Freddie and two younger guys sat together laughing about something. Jordan didn't try to join them. He just sat there, phone in his hand, thumb moving fast. Later, I found out who he was texting. Isabella. This is humiliating. Your father's punishing me for something that happened at a party. This isn't about work performance. This is personal. She called me that evening. Dad, is it true you put Jordan on the loading dock? It's true. He says it's retaliation for Friday. Did he tell you about Gilberto Huff, Freddie Gibson, Caitlin Thomas? Silence. Those names mean anything to you, Isabella? No. Who are they? People who worked for your husband. People he humiliated the same way he humiliated me at that party, except they didn't have anywhere to go afterward. I've got 3 formal complaints, all dismissed, all from employees over 50 that Jordan decided weren't worth respecting. Her voice dropped. He never mentioned any complaints. Would you expect him to? Long pause. What do you want me to do with that, Dad? I don't want you to do anything with it. I want you to ask him yourself. Ask him about Caitlin Thomas's transfer. Ask him what he wrote in that email about dead weight. She didn't answer that, just said she needed to think and hung up. Tuesday, Jordan lasted the whole shift without complaint, though I heard from the foreman he'd started arguments twice, once with a younger worker he thought was moving too slow, once with Gilberto over how a pallet was wrapped. Old habits. Wednesday, I decided to walk the floor myself, not announced, just walked down in a work jacket like I did every few months, long before Jordan ever worked there. Nobody blinked twice at me. Most of the older crew knew exactly who signed their checks, and they respected that I still showed up on the floor. I found Jordan at the far dock, stacking boxes with Freddie. He didn't see me at first. You know this is temporary, Jordan was saying, more to himself than to Freddie. Guy's just trying to make a point. Once Isabella talks some sense into him, this is over. Freddie kept stacking. Maybe, or maybe he's finally seeing what kind of man you are when nobody with a title is watching. I run a whole division. I don't need a lecture from a guy on pallet duty. Freddie stopped, looked at him steady. 59 years old, 22 years in this company, and you had me relearn my own job in front of a 26-year-old to make yourself look sharp. That's the kind of man you are, son.
title doesn't change that." Jordan's face went red, and for a second I thought he actually might say something he couldn't take back to a man twice his age on a warehouse floor with witnesses standing 10 feet away. That's when he turned and saw me standing at the end of the row. His whole posture changed. "Mr. Stanley, I didn't realize you'd be down here." "I own the floor, Jordan. I come down when I feel like it." I looked between him and Freddie. "Everything all right over here?" Freddie answered before Jordan could. "Everything is fine, Mr. Stanley. Just talking about standards." Jordan's eyes went tight, like he understood exactly what that meant and didn't like it one bit. And that look, the calculation behind it, the same one I'd seen in my office Monday, told me he wasn't anywhere close to learning the lesson I was hoping he'd learn. He was just waiting for his chance to turn this around on somebody else.
3 weeks in, Jordan asked for a meeting. Not with Isabella standing behind him this time. Just him, sitting across from my desk again, this time in the same jeans and boots he'd worn every day on that dock. "I want to talk about coming back upstairs," he said. "Talk. I've done 3 weeks on that floor. I think I've made whatever point you needed me to make." He folded his hands, tried for that same confident tone from the party. It didn't land the same anymore. "I'd like to return to my division." "Tell me about Caitlin Thomas." He blinked. "What about her?" "Tell me what you'd say to her if she was sitting in that chair instead of you." He was quiet a long moment. "I'd tell her the transfer was a business decision." "That's not an answer, Jordan. That's a deflection. Same at the party, same as every complaint filed against you this year." I leaned forward. "I gave you 3 weeks to sit with what it feels like to be looked at like you don't matter. I watched you argue with a 20-year-old about palate wrap on day 2. I heard you tell Freddie Gibson this was temporary, like it was beneath you the whole time. Because it is temporary. I'm a VP, not a warehouse worker. You're whatever I decide you are in this building. That's the part you still haven't learned." I opened a folder on my desk. "Caitlin Thomas has requested a transfer back to corporate now that there's an opening. I'm approving it. Gilberto Huff is being promoted to Senior Operations Manager for the whole regional division, your old division." Jordan's face went white. "You're replacing me with him?" "I'm correcting a mistake I should have caught a year ago." I closed the folder. "As for you, you have 2 options left. You can stay on at Falconer in a junior logistics role, no direct reports, starting salary, and prove over time whether you've actually changed, or you can resign today with a neutral reference." "That's not a real choice. That first option is a demotion 3 levels down." "It's the only version of dignity I'm offering you, Jordan. You didn't offer any to Gilberto, or Freddie, or Caitlin when you had the power. I'm not obligated to hand you more than they got." He sat there working his jaw, and I watched him arrive at the same choice I'd expected from the start. "I resign," he said, "effective today." I figured. He stood, straightened his jacket like it still meant something. "Isabella's not going to forgive you for this." "Isabella's already talked to Caitlin Thomas herself. Called her last week. I watched that land. Whatever she decides about you now, it won't be because of anything I did to you. It'll be because of what you did to everybody around you, including her." He left without another word. I heard later he moved to Atlanta within the month, took a job at a firm that didn't know his history yet. Isabella filed for divorce 2 weeks after that. Slow process, the kind that takes months to untangle. But she moved into a place near me with Phoebe, and some Saturdays now Phoebe comes by my house, and I make her the same pancakes I made Isabella 30 years ago. Gilberto runs the division better than Jordan ever did. Turnover's down, and 2 of the older dispatchers who'd been thinking about quitting decided to stay. Caitlin's back at corporate, finally got the promotion she should have had 2 years ago. Freddie still works the dock, says he likes it there, but I made sure his pay reflects 30 years of showing up on time. Last Sunday, Phoebe sat on my porch steps eating a popsicle, chocolate on her fingers, same as always, and asked me to tell her the story about the old dog in the storm. I told it slow, the way I always do, and she fell asleep halfway through against my shoulder. Jordan thought power was walking into a room and deciding who belonged there and who didn't. Took him 3 weeks on a loading dock to understand it doesn't work that way. And even then, I'm not sure he really did. But I did. Real power isn't who you can throw out of a party. It's who you choose to lift up when nobody's making you do it. That's the only kind worth having.